It's got a big burnt
Where are we
pan in
gonna
it.
This is amazing.
Where are we gonna pose?
In the front, no?
Oh my God, and all of the goddesses are on the board.
Yes.
So I just want to brag. Okay, so guys, come.
Well,
So Rosie
they're,
the Riveter, girl power.
you should hold it like this because they're wearing.
Oh,
Okay.
we're gonna turn around and make their like.
Let me just tell you that this morning I did not feel I had this. So, perfect timing.
Yeah, thank you for letting us know
Universal
that.
Day.
Yeah, because you told us okay, maybe that was
That's what we're gonna wear.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thursday.
okay.
And then we're like, okay, next year.
That was
Scoot-
perfect. Rose.
scoot
Oh,
over.
sorry, Mike taking up space here.
So
Okay.
today was not a day
Is it
that
on?
I had it. Okay, let's see how I, and I'll fill you in on what's going
Okay,
on.
let's take pictures.
So cute. You should all be eating the Rice Krispie treat at the time. Oh,
That can be the next picture.
yeah, right? I'm with you.
Okay, everybody, and geez, I'll take two just in case. And then I want to take one with my phone so I can.
Where'd that camera come from?
That's
me.
Oh my God, I haven't seen like a camera. People take pictures of
An actual
camera.
camera.
It's such a long time,
I
yeah.
love it.
Okay, ladies, 1, 2, 3.
Is that why you wore pink today?
Yeah.
I walked in, I'm like, you look so pretty. I wish I would have gotten the memo.
Oh, we all have to be next to each other.
Wait, guys, it's not right. I gotta read the little bus.
But everybody's got to look.
Why, so yours looks bigger? Is that the reason?
Those are huge and mine is tiny. I'm like, it's not right.
Oh, got it.
It's not.
I was using Jennifer's example when I was out of town. I was telling some of my
All right,
clients
so
about.
everybody look behind you so I can get your faces.
Oh, come
Like
Tanisha.
that. Come on,
Wait,
Tanisha,
I was
your
trying to,
turn.
it ain't no.
Well, we're gonna turn.
Oh, I see.
Oh, you wanna do it without us
Oh,
turning?
don't turn around.
We'll turn
Don't
that
turn,
way.
yeah.
Yes,
turn.
Don't turn?
Oh, no,
Yeah,
it's okay.
Go ahead.
Girl power could be a little sloppy.
Yeah.
That's okay. Remember, we're doing 5 things at once
Wonderful.
with our arms.
So have balance.
Okay, here we go. Multi-shot, okay.
Yeah. You see
That is
different angles?
so cool. One click and you get a lot of shots.
Why don't we do one like
So
this,
nice.
like turn around like this, and we
Did they get their certificates?
No, that's yeah.
She's not
Girl, that's
in
it.
yet.
Oh, okay.
She's the only one in the office.
Well, let
You
me
guys
tell
are
you
gonna
what's
get your
going on.
certificates.
You'll get your certificates today. I was just telling
We're waiting for our.
the girls, so we'll take some pictures of that as well. This
Oh
is
yeah,
so
I teach her lit.
cute.
I just wanted you to know that.
That you what?
I teach her, she lit.
It's a compliment.
Oh, no, I know what it is. No, it took a second. I told you. That's where I learned my stuff.
I thought she said she lit. Sorry. And I'm like,
No, she lit. Yeah, they might kill you. She's the best.
Do we have seats for everybody?
We really just need to be her student, and including me.
Oh, no, we have to go to class.
yeah.
No, I know, you guys.
Oh, they have to go.
Bye.
You have enough seats.
Thank you.
James, you're in our class or in the
Yes,
class?
James is in our class.
Here, sit next to Stacy,
1, 2, 3,
and then you
4.
can watch that. I don't know if I deleted the stuff off the thing.
So the chair open?
Yes, there's another chair.
Oh, you're gonna move, okay.
Gonna go
Oh,
bother.
wait,
I
let me,
won't be there.
I don't know, because I don't know who. So sign in.
Oh, it's 6. Okay, we're good. Everybody.
So this class is officially marriage and family, although we've already started, but for the new people, so we're talking. So let me tell you what is going on, because a lot is going
Oh,
on.
no, Rebecca. We're missing Rebecca. She's supposed to-
Oh, Rebecca.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
She lit. Yes.
Thank
Miss Mocayo is the best. I love her. I want to be in her class. So there's a few things I want to talk to you about, and I know that we did Goddess while I was gone, but let me just kind of tell you what's going on with me. So about the class, any questions about the hybrid, any questions about that kind of stuff?
Stacy and You've never done a hybrid, right?
Here, where it says family dynamics.
That's your class. That's your official class.
Well,
So you
class
do
is called
everything.
marriage and family.
Yeah, I don't know what they have it on the code, but remember because that comes from,
The code is,
That's the homework. Okay.
CLP
That's the homework.
3005.
CLP 3005. So you'll do everything online. We have to bring that consent form. I'll bring that one on.
No, we already did.
The second consent form?
Oh, right.
Remember,
No,
we
right.
said that starting this term. Okay, so rules, and you'll sign it on Thursday. You have to be in class. That's your participation attendance grade. So most classes is 15 to 20%. Did you put that on your computer, or did it come like that? That is so pretty.
It's white, it's not.
Oh my God, I love that.
No.
My Aphrodite just,
Yeah.
we'll talk in language of goddesses. I want you to start listening to what people say. Remember when we did the element lecture? And I said, what element is speaking when the person was talking? That's sort of what I want you to start thinking. People are speaking, whether it's a goddess or an element or an archetype. And the more and more you listen, and today we're going to do a little counseling role play with couples. So we'll have James. James is going to have to be the husband. Yeah, when he showed up, I was like, great.
Token boy.
Well, that's okay. You
So
could
tired.
say I'm so tired of this marriage. I mean, whatever you want. It's role play.
Please.
Oh, you're tired. You work. You go to
This
school.
weekend.
You have a kid.
After this weekend,
Can we do two things real quick? Again, on the hybrid, just so you know, we're gonna meet Tuesdays and Thursdays. What we do in the class is kind of an extension to what you do online. So it's like an online class, but I tweaked it a little bit. So you don't have to post discussions, but you do have an assignment every week. You do have a midterm and a final. And one of the things we have to do today, if possible, is to do your certification, which is just everybody has to do that. You go in there, 2 seconds, say yes. And then the pre-test, which doesn't count for the grade. Okay?
Now remember, you have to post attendance. So when you go into the online shell, when you do an activity, that's considered attendance. Because sometimes I'll text you guys and I'll be like, you haven't posted attendance. That's what we mean.
Right,
Okay.
so you have to go in there and do that. Your assignments are due by Sunday. I usually will go in Monday and we'll grade them. The only thing that changes from being an online class is that on the 4th week, everything's due Thursday, because we have to post grades. And that's the only difference. If you any questions at all, the best way to get us is email, because I get it on my phone and we get them all the time. So, so that's it. So if you have any questions at all, you can always email me, and even if it's on a weekend, I will answer. And Dr. Yahia likes to keep everybody's phones too. She likes to text.
Yeah, I
So
like to
give
text.
give her your phone numbers, and she'll be in touch with you that way also. Okay, so we're continuing what we worked on the goddess archetype.
So for those of you that are new, I gave you a packet that is the stuff that we've covered. So as people kind of come into the clinical, because this is considered the clinical component, we're going to be adding on. I'll repeat things because you don't know. Like all of these posters are the theories that we've covered. So you can watch videos if you want to sort of get information, or you'll just sort of, eventually it'll all sort of flow right in. So for those of you who were here last, so we did this goddess archetype. I have your book, by the way. You were absolutely right. Oh my God, I struggled. I couldn't even finish it.
It was the worst.
This book, The Goddess Within, is where you get the questionnaire from. And this is just another thing. One of the things I try to do is get you to listen to clients from different perspectives. So whether it's theories and you're more psychoanalytic and you're thinking of childhood traumas, if you're thinking more new age or something more, in this case, we were doing goddess last week. I gave you the goddess questionnaire. Mr. Pachi put the 6 goddess types. These are the main 6 goddess types. You could do that at home. You could take a picture of the board, but the handout explains it. So just to sort of piggyback, and then I want to talk a little bit about what happened, because it looks as if you guys all have questions about death and the afterlife. So just because of the nature of my work, I want to answer some questions if you guys have any. What goddess was speaking when she was talking about her aunt's passing? Persephone was speaking in terms of the death, absolutely. And what other goddess was talking? Demeter, exactly. Demeter was speaking because of that maternal child, the family. So you can hear that she's concerned. She was concerned about her parents. She's concerned about, I'm assuming they're your cousins, the daughters that were left behind. So we can hear someone's, and this is a different way of archetype. This is a different type of archetype. So it's just different names for, sort of like a breakdown. So you were talking about your experience with death or what your beliefs are. And this is something that you're going to see a lot of in practice, where people come from different cultural backgrounds, different religious beliefs. We've talked a lot about referring people. If it's something that doesn't sit well with you, you have a certain religious belief that you can't wrap your head around someone else's belief system, or someone's tradition, or even someone's trauma, you would refer them out, and that's okay. But grief and trauma, those are going to be things that are going to come to your counseling practice over and over and over again. So we are responsible for learning about how other people deal with trauma and grief. So for instance, if we were basically just plain clinical, she was saying that the phone rang, right? The phone rang and it was your aunt's phone number, and it was the cousin calling, and then I make the joke about dead people calling me all the time. That's the nature of my work. So to me, if you said, without qualifying, that it was your cousin, immediately I am like, the cancer center? Oh, that's fine. And then I have to tell you guys what's going on with me. I had a really good week, and now I'm back to like, I'm in so the 0 to 100, it is not even funny. I don't even know how to get to the 48 to 52. I'm so screwed up. So when she says that the phone rings and it's her dead aunt calling, to me that's like the most normal thing, because I deal with this kind of stuff all the time. And if I have clients that are okay with that, then we can speak at that level. But then you qualified it by saying, oh, my cousin called me from her phone. Right there, I'm like, oh, exactly what Ms. Moncayo said. Your brain is trying to make sense of something. So I, right there, without you even telling me that you have a certain belief system, can see, oh, Francis, you can't just throw out your belief system. You need to figure out where this person believes from, because if not, she's going to walk out of the session saying, my therapist is a nutbag, and run, and oh my God, let me tell all my friends to never go see this person again. But if you're in line with part of the work that I do, which is, doing this sort of otherworldly work, then it's perfectly normal, because I have clients that come specifically for that. This week alone, I had a client whose cousin passed, and they wanted to communicate. So this is just a very common thing. People seek out answers. So depending on the kind of therapist you are, you may or may not believe, and it's important to quantify or qualify this at the beginning of a session. If someone is coming for grief, what beliefs do you have about the afterlife? Because it might impede the therapeutic relationship. We always have to think of the client's best interest, not your best interest. So if you are not in alignment with certain belief systems, then you as a therapist are responsible for knowing what other traditions there are, what beliefs on both sides, those that believe that an afterlife exists. You know, if you look at Egypt, this entire deck of cards is about Egyptian mythology. The entire Egyptian belief and why they have the sarcophagus and why they wrap them and mummify them is because their entire belief is what happens in the afterlife. It was almost as if this life was secondary to what came. Do you guys know how the Egyptians judged someone if they were a good or a bad person and whether or not they were going to the afterlife?
Did they weigh their heart or something?
Yes, they weighed their heart on scales. My scales are covered, so I won't take them out. But they put a heart, the physical heart, and a feather. How can a heart weigh less than a feather? How can a heart weigh less than a feather? In what context? Think.
Oh, it's not heavy with
Oh,
burden
light.
and bad stuff, it's light and.
Okay, not heavy with burden and bad stuff.
The
Burden
negative.
not so much, because
The
just being in
negative.
the earthly plane, you're gonna have burden.
It's just the negative.
Bad stuff. Were you a good person? If your heart weighed less than the feather, you went to the afterlife. You went to heaven or whatever your wording is. But if your heart weighed more than the feather, that you did bad stuff, then so this entire belief system was about the afterlife. That's why when you go to the pyramids and you see the sarcophagus and you see, or when they were doing a King Tut, what's that called? Like a museum tour, exhibition, thank you. With King Tut several years back, where they were bringing him around to different museums and things like that. That's what they're sort of, you know, they understand that it's not the physical, but it's what it represents in terms of the afterlife. And King Tut being a child, he was young, you would assume that his heart was lighter than the feather. So we are responsible for knowing how certain people process the belief systems related to death. And we can't single out anybody and what they believe, because if not, we're going to have judgments. So share a little bit about what your own beliefs are about the afterlife. So let me just start with you for a moment. What is your belief that you're having difficulty understanding that the drawer is opening or the TV is going on? Why does that conflict, why does that create a conflict with your belief system?
Well, when I was born, my family was into, studying with Jehovah's Witnesses. So when I was born, that's what I was born into. And my mom really, not forced, but she really wanted me to, that's how she found peace. And so she wanted me to also experience that.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you right there. For the seasoned therapists, what is this? Okay, but what is this for her? This is part of her what? Of her origin story. Okay, so one of the things you're going to hear is that there are 4 ways that we develop the subconscious. And from 0 to 7 years old, or from the moment we're conceived to 7 years old, we have what's called an origin story. So part of your origin story that will remain with you forever is the Jehovah's Witness belief system. Whether or not, are you a practicing Jehovah's Witness? She is not a practicing Jehovah's Witness, but immediately she went back to childhood.
Yeah.
So we just met her, you're our pretend client for the moment. We just learned that part of her origin story has to do with Jehovah's Witness. So if you are not an educated therapist, and it is okay, you are not supposed to know everything. If you do not know something about a client's cultural and religious beliefs, what do?
You research it.
Okay, you research, but in the middle
Or you
of
just ask them.
the session, you're not going to Google. You ask them.
You just ask
You
them.
know what? I had a friend in college, this is true. I had a friend in college, Marvine, and she was Jehovah's Witness, and I asked her once why they didn't celebrate birthdays. That's really the extent, and she told me, of my knowledge. Would you mind sharing with me a little more about what the belief system is? That's perfectly okay. Then of course your responsibility as an educated therapist, if you're gonna continue working with the client, is that you research. Every session you're not gonna keep asking. So you do your work. You do your follow-up research. We talked about that when we talked about behavior change theories. Okay? So, but she shares with us that part of her origin story is Jehovah's Witness. Continue. So what did that mean in terms of this experience now?
Well, I always learned that once you die, that's it. You go nowhere. You just die.
Is that what the Jehovah
Yeah.
believe?
Yeah.
They don't believe in an afterlife.
There is one, but it only comes after what we would call the end of the world, and everybody's dead, and then you have the, like, forgot the word, I haven't studied in years, because I got disappointed. So basically, everybody comes back to
You
life.
got disappointed in what?
The religion and what they believe in.
At
And
what
I-
age?
And I'm gonna tell you the story how it happened. I was 14, my friend.
Stop right there. What's 14? It's a skinny cow. Every 7 years, we go through some sort of rebirth, death and rebirth cycle. So we question, at 14 is the beginning of when we're trying to push away from our parents' belief systems to question whether or not we believe that origin story. It's a skinny cow, so you have to go through some sort of crisis. So what do we know about her in a matter of 2 minutes? She's questioning religious, family, cultural beliefs. When things happen as a Demeter or a Persephone, when things happen as a family member or a religious sort of belief system, she's gonna have a skinny cow, she's gonna have a crisis. That's gonna be a huge part of her thread. We're pulling the religion thread right there. We've heard 2 things, and we already see how her sweater's gonna unravel. Can you guys see that? Perfect, continue.
I'm gonna see it.
That's what you'll do in this class, right? That's why you'll cry. So you were inaugurated wonderfully, yes. And that's why Ms. Rapace has the tissues. I cry all the time, so I was crying this morning like a baby. So.
When I was 14, I was going to this, it's called Jehovah's Kingdom. It's not called church, but let's call it church for now. There was this guy that I used to study with. He was 16. And he was baptizing the whole shebang, so he was like legit.
Jehovah's baptism?
Yes.
Like that religion's
Yes.
baptism? Okay.
And he went to, door to door with the group, and this was back in England. That's when I lived in England, and they went to the friends. They were walking by the street, and there was a coffee shop, and they're like, "Hey, let's get some coffee." He's like, "I'm gonna stay out here so I can, whoever passes by, I'm gonna try to give them the word." And they all went. He stayed outside. A car came, smashed him against the coffee shop, and cut him in half. And when the ambulance came, they said, "Oh, the only way we can help you is by giving you a blood transfusion." And we're not allowed. Well, I say we because I don't believe it, whether it was my religion or not. He was 16, so the
16?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said 60.
No, he was 16.
Oh.
He was 16, so he didn't have, the authority to say no, because he was underage, so they had to ask his mom. And his mom said no. And when I heard that, it came out in the news, the papers and everything. And when I heard that, I asked my
Let me
mom.
stop you 1 second. What was the reaction? What did you feel at that moment? Someone I heard went,
That was me.
judgment.
Yep. Don't do that to your clients.
It does not mean you don't have a judgment.
Just don't do
We have
it.
to just become very very vigilant of our nonverbals.
Yep.
So, lesson, do phones over the, clients over the phone. We have to become very
You have to
vigilant.
listen, don't
Because you
fix.
see how, if that moment, if you were still in this religion or whatever, and she is your therapist and she makes that, no, right there, that relationship, that therapeutic relationship breaks.
It would, the
There's a
doors would be
judgment.
closed. You wouldn't
So we
trust.
have to pay attention. Who else had a judgment? What was your judgment?
It wasn't nice.
It's okay. The judgments aren't nice.
Yeah, I was like, religion, yeah, but it's your child, so I would
Yeah.
have put religion to the side and done what needed to be done to save her. So I judged the mom, I think she's bad.
Okay, perfect. So judgments, she judges herself as a mom. That's,
Are we mirroring?
yes,
Okay.
we're always mirroring, okay? But that's why I specifically asked what the judgment was. And I'm just gonna play it devil's advocate, not because I believe anything, or any particular thing. How many of you believe in God or a godlike force? How many of you, when things are going wrong, pray to God? Okay, or this, whatever it is that you believe in. How many of you have children? And if your child, or something happens with your child, whether it's health or school or anything, pray to this God-like thing for your child.
Like, I'm in between, like I used to, and now I don't know.
Okay. So you're in questioning.
Yeah.
You're in questioning. So of course, something like that is going to mirror an insecurity perhaps that you have because you're not sure. In the hierarchy, did everybody get this? If not, you have it in your handout. There's a specific handout. I don't know if I gave you guys that are new the particular description of each goddess, but I'll get it for you. In the hierarchy of life, if you will, just to explain Jen's judgment, because we have to understand why we have our judgments. This does not mean that our judgments are going to change. Your judgments are judgments because it's something unresolved in you. Please understand that. So I just have to say this. I learned the other day that judgment has an E. Okay? So in one of these posters, judgments is spelled wrong because I could have sworn that judgments didn't have an E, but I got an autocorrect thing. So my whole life spelling it with an E. I don't know when I learned it didn't have an E, and now I know it has an E. So now it's judgment. So all the papers that had judgment spelled wrong, that's the reason. So maybe we'll have the poster redone. Oh, and she said that the other posters are done. So maybe we can get them today.
Okay.
Okay, unresolved.